Good morning. Good Tuesday morning. Thank you. Got it. We're in business. Jorge, I'll circle back to that stuff later. It was basically just numbers. It's just based on math in that case, in terms of the morning numbers. But they have to line up with other stuff, and it wasn't fibs, and it was just other stuff. But great job. And we can circle back to that later. Okay. Basically, 440.30 is our pivot. If they stay above, and they push up into 441.80 up to 442.40 in that zone up there near the highs, and I'm going to show you something, then that's an opportunity to short scalp with potential, for a short scalp with potential. Other side of the pivot is 438.70. That's a buy for a bounce back in the other direction. Will the gap work? Maybe, maybe not. That's a coin toss. So those are my numbers until they develop something else. But I want to show you something. Take a look at a 4-hour chart, not a 3-hour. You got a 2-hour chart, and you take a look at this and you say, well, what are they doing? So let's just get the concept of what's going on first before anything happens. What they're doing is they're trying to climb up the breakdown candle. Okay, how high did they get? We don't know, but if they get to the top, first time, best time, what's the likelihood that they just blow right through? They can, they have, they will again, but it's unlikely. It's in the 20% of the 80-20 rule conceptually. So first time, best time. So if they're up there early, sooner than later, not creeping up there, it's an opportunity for reaction back down because they're running a test. That's generally the way it works. Okay, back to, it's all about staying above or below the pivot for now. So that's pretty straightforward. Nothing going on with stocks on the move. I mean, it's just painfully quiet out there in terms of pre-market activity. It's the calm before the storm still from waiting for earnings season, and they'll fire up pretty soon. Banks will start, I think the end of this week probably. It's JP Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, PNC, all that stuff. We just wait for them to open, wait for them to do the thing, one thing or the other, or something else will develop. And that's the way we treat it. Patience. We wait for the market to give us something we want. We don't take stuff off the shelf we don't need. Real quick, back to Jorge for a second on that question from FMC yesterday. That wasn't the reason. The 2022 October number that you cited, that had nothing to do with it. So just to let you know, it's just a coincidence. There are no coincidences. It's an important place, but that wasn't my reason. But that confirms why that was an important place. So it's an added reason, but that wasn't my reason. If that makes any sense. Kind of a word salad. All right, we're getting close to the open here, 15 seconds away. To post time, hanging around the pivot. Oh, a little loud there. Okay, well, we'll see. We'll fight the pivot for a while. We'll see what they do. We don't know. We don't anticipate. We just wait. We just wait for them to do something of interest. All right. I'm gonna start looking around to see if anything else is going on while the spiders do their thing. Patience. What's happening now in the first minute or so isn't necessarily going to be happening 5 or 10 minutes from now. Just wait. Jorge, the gap trading course is the strategy. Okay, it's not going to provide you every number that I have for any other reason for stocks on the move all the time. Sometimes it will match and sometimes it won't. So don't mix and match the two. That is a single strategy, but it ends there. This offline. We'll figure it out together. Don't worry about it. I'm with you. Work with probablys and all that stuff. We just take it for what it gives us. The more you think about that stuff, the more confused you get, the more likely something different happens, and that's just the way it works. So rewire the brain. Just don't fret over that stuff. CPI might do this, all that stuff. Don't worry about it. IWM is strong. I noticed that in the pre-market. Phil, yep. Google's down 57 cents. I don't know if there's anything going on there. Let's see. Let's see what we got. Yeah, you see where you are. They test this low, which is 114.41. You're likely to get some kind of a bull bear battle going on down there, but you can't go long in that spot. They came close, they bounced away. This isn't considered first time, best time in my book because they came kind of close. So From an intraday perspective, you'll get some bull bear battle stuff going on down there, but it's not the greatest day trade in the world, in my opinion. Just my opinion. See if the spiders can push up a little bit. Still not that close to that area, not even close, but we'll see. Well, that's good, Jorge. We'll work on it. All good. You can put both things together, the fibs plus a lot of the other stuff that we talk about all the time. And when they match, and I think you're getting that, that's when you have the makings of a trade, right? Just looking around. Let's see if there's any other stocks moving. I got a candidate. Just bear with me here. Candidate. Alcoa. That's the zone. 33.30 down to 32.92. All right. It's wrong. They start closing candles below 32.68. Alcoa. Just keep an eye on it. Still looking around. I do have another candidate. It's not that close. We'll wait for Alcoa. Alcoa, if it's going to get there, it'll get there first. The other one is a little ways away. But I got a beat on a couple of things. Eric, if you're new here, and I appreciate you being here, we're looking for 441.80 to a zone up to 442.40 for a short if they get there. That's the current watch plus Alcoa 33.30 down to 32.92 is the play. That's what we're looking at right now. Okay, can't ride it up to 441.80 because we don't know it'll get there. That's for everybody, not just Eric, everybody. But that's the current thing that comes right out of the pre-market notes. That's what we're looking for. Something different. That was all they can manage on the upside for now. Just say it is. And they get below the pivot. The next place would be the gap right here, left open from yesterday. Again, still a coin toss at this stage. We'll see what happens when and if they get there, whether it's a bounce place or not. My place was down here. Alcoa bounced in front, and the other one is bouncing too. It was Carnival CCL, but it's not that close. It's down at the 1834. All right, so the spiders are giving up the pivot. They're testing it. We'll see what happens. If they stay below, the first place they want to get to is the gap. All right, here we go. I still, for this point in time, 12 minutes into the day, I still like 438.70. They can't get there. When you want to buy the gap, that's up to you. That's not my play. I think it's a coin toss. Yep. Qs are coming down pretty fast, same as spiders. Everything trades together with this kind of stuff. SMH coming down a little bit. Yep. Still could be part of a morning shakeout or could be something more. We don't know yet, right? We don't need to guess. Gap is 66, 439.66. So far the low is 65. No shocker, no surprise. Again, that was a coin toss in my book. Back above the pivot, bulls take over again. Stay below the pivot, and the door is still open for 438.70. Now, of course, the pivot 440.30 becomes overhead resistance until or unless they can get back above. And we'll see if they can run a test of it. Okay, here comes the pivot. Now, if that was just a shakeout to fill the gap, so be it. Everything's about 440.30. Closing candles above or staying below. That's it. High 28 against 30. That's a test. Okay. Jorge, thanks for that, but I have my own pre-market scanner, which weeds out the stuff I don't want. That kind of site puts everything in the mix. I have criteria. They don't. Yeah, we saw that, Ron. That's why I took it off the board. Let's see what else is moving, if anything. Again, hold on. This is a low price name, but 1040. But the next number is down here at 998, 999, $10. Just put it at 10 bucks. That's the problem. That's a big spread on a $10 stock. That's the problem. This is an important place, but if they start closing candles below, it opens the door for this. So I'm still looking, see what else we have. Watch Netflix at 428.35. If it's $3 away, but you never know. Netflix 428.35. If the spiders can recapture the pivot, they'll start to climb up again. If they can't, they'll fall. And if they fall below the gap, it opens the door for 438.70. Right now it's slow and you got to wait for them to do something you want. And I understand patience is tough, but you have to learn it. Forget IO. It's so low priced that that little bounce counts now. Never mind. I had a beat on this one too, Ambarella, but look at that. They're bouncing. I'm still looking. Every day it's different, Charles. It's just mainly you got to chalk it up a lot to experience. It's not a formula. I see where the market is in the pre-market. I know the numbers and I know what makes it bullish or bearish in just by the way I look at things, but there's no one thing I can tell you today that's going to apply tomorrow. Well, it's around yesterday's low, Matt. Matt's asking where the 20 period moving average is today. So technically it's at 438.10, right around yesterday's low, not that far away. Let's see, Ambarella. Never know. Ambarella, 79.56. $78.88. Ambarella. Spiders are still flirting with the pivot. Anybody take the gap long when they got down there? I'm just curious. I didn't ask at the time. I'm curious though. Okay. I figured there would be. I just forgot to ask. Yeah, you guys knew what you were doing. It was a coin toss. You took it. That's fine. Worked. A lot of you, more than well, not more than I thought, but a lot. It's good. Everybody does what they're comfortable with. You assess your own risk, and those that didn't want it didn't take it. Those that did. That's fine. The commentary is from Inside the Numbers, Brian. If you're on a trial, you don't see it. If you're not, you can email me. I'll take care of you. You're welcome. Be back in 30 seconds. Can't get through the pivot. They ran a test a couple times. Can't get through yet. So that tells you something, right? That tells you maybe the destination is lower. Maybe they're going to eat time off the clock to get above. But while they're below, the bears are essentially in control. Even though the market's up a little bit on the day, a touch, the S&P's up 5-6 points. That doesn't mean the bulls or bears are in control. It just means the tape is green on the day. But if they can't get above the pivot, the bears are in control and they'll push the tape down. Doesn't mean they won't. You can't go short because they can't get above yet. It's not a prudent thing to do. But so far, they can't get above. They tested it, they spiked it, but they can't stay above. A little symmetry. Yeah, I would say that makes sense. Who brought that up? Elos. See a little symmetry here. They have this move from the low. They had one of these eating time off the clock situations, and then some kind of equidistant move. It's not exact, but I agree there is some symmetry there. Doesn't mean that's the end. It just means for now that made sense that they kind of stalled out there. I think that's a good pickup or a good eyeball on your part. Agree with that. You're looking at a 5-minute. Yeah, same thing. Oh, hold on a second. Will says, oh, nice job, Will. Back to the pivot. I get asked all the time, well, how do you come up with the pivot? Well, every day it's different, but let me give you an idea. Okay. For example, let's say there was an important number yesterday that they tested and they couldn't get above. And all of a sudden this morning, we find the market above that number in the pre-market or testing it or right around it in the pre-market. Well, that might be a hint / indication to me that that number, even though it was yesterday, it doesn't matter it was yesterday, it's still an important place. And if now they just couldn't do it yesterday, but now all of a sudden first thing this morning, they're right at that place, well, that could become a pivot. And that's one of the things, right? And look what they just did. They just ran up to get above it right at the 10 o'clock close. Interesting enough. Hold on. Call me at 10 o'clock in the morning. Are you kidding me? All right. We'll see what they do with the pivot. Now, the longer they stay above the pivot, if they do, right? If they can start closing candles above the pivot, starts with a 5-minute, morphs to a 10-minute. So you got a 5 and a 10 above the pivot. Not yet with a 15. That's why I usually say 10s and 15s. You got to have a 10 and a 15-minute candle. That's a pretty good indication. And it's not a guarantee, but it's a pretty good hint that they want to move higher. The longer, and here's the way it works. The longer they stay above, Yeah, you did get a 15-minute. I'm sorry. The longer they stay above, the more likely they are to move higher. But you see what happened? They closed this candle above and they moved immediately lower. So that, while it counts, it doesn't count. They're below. They got to stay above. Staying above and testing it is fine. Closing above and then 2 seconds later getting below isn't fine. That's not fine. Nothing is an exact science with the market. It's part science, part art form. I say that all the time because it's true. Sometimes the numbers are exact science, but how you trade it is an art form. They don't always give you the trade the way you want it. Sometimes it turns out not to be a great trade. Sometimes it turns out to be a fantastic trade, but they didn't let you in the right way, all that stuff. Part art form, part science. You gotta match the two. You find the balance. Yeah, they're sitting right on 364.50 would be really the next place on the downside, give or take. So now that they're below the pivot, what we say is, hey, as long as they stay above yesterday's close, they're not in great shape, but they're in okay shape. Back above the pivot, they're in good shape. And that's the way we look at that one. If they give up the gap that they filled, then it opens the door for the 438.70, and I'm still in waiting mode, waiting for that. If they give it, and if they get above the pivot and they stay there, there may be a ride them long situation, but they're not there now, so we'll see how things develop. All right.
AMD is coming down into its first level at 109.40.
Look at that. You never know. AMD. Let's see what the number is. 109.40. 109.40 in AMD. 108.17 would be the other side of that range. Right there. I nailed them twice. Okay. So here they are testing the pivot again. Not the pivot, the gap, sorry. So simply put, below the gap opens a door down here. And that's where I want to buy it still. I'm not a fan of the coin tosses for me. Every trader is different. I'm more selective. Some traders will always buy the gap in a situation like this, and it'll bounce a lot of the time. Don't have a percentage, but you know, you get a bounce a lot of the time. It just wasn't for me today. IWM. Yeah, IWM has got, we talked about it last night in the video. IWM is, this is no, oh yeah, it is. IWM is testing the highs, correct? And this is the next range that A, they want to get to, and B, and I can't say whether it's 190 or 191, 191.30, but it's in this place. These are the numbers. In this place is the next place they want to get to, and it is overhead resistance. Okay, IWM. Not to say they won't ultimately go higher, they can, but that's a place similar to the first place when we shorted at 188.18 from the swing trade. All right, up here, shorted it, got a ride. That was the next number, was like 191 something. I forgot at the time, but this is it now. And so they took care of this number, they sold off. Now they're going to the next number, most likely if they can get above this high. And spiders are coming down. I'm still interested in my number. AMD, we'll leave that up there. Very slow tape again. It doesn't mean they can or won't move later, but it's a slow tape now, just stating a fact. Just watching, waiting for them to do something I want and doing other stuff at the same time. Some Sally, the customer service rep work. I'm here. Down, let them drip, let them come down. 438.70, give or take, is a spot. They can get down to 438.50, 40 in that camp. Certainly can, but that's a place where we expect a bull bear battle. They moving, they should get to this number. Should. Famous last words. Just giving a look, getting a look. Just want to see a visual on all the different charts. Taking a look at Microsoft, bear with me. Yeah, 324.57 is another number. 323.55. If Microsoft gets there, that's a zone for a bull bear battle / bounce back in the other direction, and the spiders are doing nothing. 440, some natural resistance, but nothing to do with it. I'm missing trades. I'm not missing anything, Will. Just because it bounced in front of my number doesn't mean I missed anything. I don't look at it that way. Well, everybody should have the numbers. If I put the Qs up on the board, you got to put the numbers on your chart or write down the numbers and anything else. I can't look at everything at the same time. AMD, nah, they'll spike the low and rip it back up in front of the number. But that's the same thing we always look for, right? And this is a good lesson. If I have a number that's close to a former low, then immediately in my mind is, hey, there's an opportunity for a spike the low and rip it back up in the other direction, because they do it all the time. Okay, so it's got to line up with the stuff. But this was a good example where they just didn't get to my number and they just spiked the low by a couple of pennies and left me and everybody else hanging waiting for 109.40. But that was the design. They just didn't give me the number, but that was the design. I lick my chops when I look at the numbers and I look at the charts and I do the work and I say, look at this, it's close to a former low, and you get 2 for 1. You get hit a number and spike the low with an opportunity for a rip it back up in the other direction. It's like a twofer. And I've been doing that for years and years and years and years and years on top of that, ever since I can remember. Baba, let's check it out. What's the question? For a recovery? I mean, here, let's take a look and let's put it in perspective what's going on. Okay. Look at, first we'll start with the daily chart. All right. So let's make sure this, yeah, it's okay. Forget these numbers. Well, forget these numbers. So what's going on in a daily chart? We'll look at it this way. You had a big up move, right? So this isn't really the low of this. Technically it is, and from an intraday perspective, it has some weight, but it really extends from down here, the prior day's close. That's the up move. Now they're starting to eat some time off the clock and beginning to formulate some kind of a bullish, flaggish kind of thing, but we don't know if it's going to come down here or not. But this is bullish, not bearish. And not saying you thought it was bearish, I'm just saying what it is. This is eating time off the clock. You just whittle it down to a 2-hour chart, eating time off the clock, just not ready to go higher yet. No different on the hourly chart. Look where they are, trying to run a test of the pivot again. What's the high? Trying to do two things at once, 444.30, 440.30. Funny how that works. So that's what I see. And then from an intraday perspective, you may say, well, look, this may be for days that they have, not that one. This may be for days that they have to do this. Another 2, 3, 4 days, eat some time off the clock. We don't know. So the big picture is it's not bearish, but from an intraday perspective, there's nothing that says you're going to rally today. And I would say 88.50 down to a spike at 88 is your support today. We'll call it 88.45. Okay, it's a give or take. Down to a spike at 88 is your support today. 88.75. Whoops, wrong way. Okay. So I would say if I'm looking at BABA, and this is just a lesson for everybody in all charts, it's just we happen to be looking at BABA. I would say I wouldn't expect, and it doesn't matter what I expect, but for me, I wouldn't expect any kind of significant bounce until they got down here. If they give it to you ahead of time, that's fine. But until you get above like 91, they have no chance to rally. So that's the take on BABA. You're welcome. The reason why I like doing that stuff is because it gives us a chart lesson that can be applied to other charts. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but might as well go through the exercise because it's good practice. Because when you start seeing this same stuff over and over and over again, it starts to become ingrained in you, in your mind, rewire the brain, right? What are the Qs doing? Pivot. Still flirting with the pivot. Yeah, IWM's up nicely. And for that matter, the transports are up almost 1%. So guess what? You're going to get a reaction up here, whether it's at 189.65 or up to a spike of 190, you're going to get a reaction up there. All right. Just saying. Thanks, Mark. I'll be right back. I'm going to update the notes. Where we say, all right, let's use some logic. Did they come back to the pivot to run another test after having an opportunity to fall further? Or did they come back to the pivot to make another attempt to get above the pivot and rally again? And we don't know the answer, obviously, but these are the thought processes that I have saying they had an opportunity to fail. It's a slow tape. They bounced right back to the pivot. Are they going to fail again? Do they need another opportunity to fail? Or is this the time that in a slow tape, they're going to give it another college try and push higher? We don't know the answer, but that's how I think about it. So I think you know where I'm leaning. If I had to say which one, and I'm not doing anything, I'm not taking action on this information, but if I had to say which one, it's why are they here again? I think they're here again to get above. And it doesn't matter what I think, but that's my mindset. I can't do anything directly with that information. It's just how I look at the tape. Opportunity to fail, failed the failure, and back to the pivot. Maybe they try and rally. That's the way I'm looking at it. Nice job, Will. Let's look at it in another perspective. Okay, so we have an hourly close coming up. Does this tell us anything? Does this candle in this area at this place tell us anything? And the answer is no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. I think the close in about 20 seconds, maybe a hint, do they close above or below? Right now they're below by a little bit. If they had an intention of going higher, wouldn't they close above? And not to say that will matter one way or the other, because they can shoot right above, right away, or below, just like they did at the open. But just saying, these are the things I'm looking at. Why can't they get above? Why can't they close above? Are they back up here to fail again? But why can't they close above? I don't have the answers, but these are the questions that I'm asking myself. And the longer they can't get above, the more convinced I am that they'll come down again. But if they just hang around and go sideways for a while, they're just building energy to go higher. But we'll see. Now, IWM, let's talk about that one. Let's say they go sideways underneath 189.65. I'm making it up for 20, 30, 40 minutes. Okay. Is that after coming close and pulling away, is that number still the same as it was 15 minutes ago? And the answer is no. Doesn't mean you're not in an overhead resistance area. It just means that they're building energy to maybe push higher than the 189.65, which is an important number, but may not be the destination. We never know until after the fact. What we can do is put the numbers on the board, and how they get there helps us determine whether we can take action at a place. So it's always the manner in which. Yeah, rewire the brain. These are the ways that I look at things. It doesn't mean you have to look at it that way. It's just information that you can choose what you want to take in, what you want to remember or utilize, what works for you. Telling you the way I do it. Works for me. Anybody doubt that 440 was the pivot today? No. Don't answer that. It's a rhetorical question. The opening range high is 441.05. Opening range is the first 30-minute candle. From a technical perspective, this is your opening range. Above the opening range is bullish. Above the opening range high. Below the opening range low is bearish. In the middle is just a range. Not to say there can't be trades in the range when you look down at a smaller time frame. You can certainly have trades in here. I'm just stating what this is. Just using the information on the chart to learn some stuff while they're slowly creeping along. And whether they give us something or not is Mrs. Market's choice. I'm not going to take a trade because I have to have a trade. I'm going to take a trade because the market got to a place in the manner in which I like, which provides an opportunity. I don't want to trade unless I can say those things. This is just in the middle of a range. Lower range, upper range. Lower range down here, fine. Upper range up here, upper range up here, but we're not there yet. So this is really the range. So somewhere up here, somewhere down here, That's the range. They're right in the middle of the range. Does that mean anything? No. It's just what it is. Just how we look at the thing. In the middle of a range, you're less certain of what's going to happen because they're right smack in the middle of a range. That's one thing. Novo? Not sure what that is. Did we talk about that one? I don't know what Novo is. Nothing. Sorry, Jorge, I don't know what it is. And Vio? I don't know. Oh, yeah, I looked at that this morning, but I don't like these ones with all these gaps because it's a ADR. Look at all those gaps. Very hard to do precise work with those. That's why you don't see a lot of them on the board. Sometimes, but not a lot. Well, still, we have a benchmark, 440.30. We see what's going on. They just can't do it yet, but they're still hanging around. You're welcome, Jorge. So if you want to look further at a bigger picture, you say, all right, what else do we have going on while we're doing nothing? Well, we have a trend line. Now, that trend line would have been more interesting this morning, earlier. But as you can see, if you keep that on your chart and they come down, you see how that will work or won't work. And if it doesn't work, it'll open the door for 438.70. That's another way to know whether the door is going to start to open. Let's say it's up here. It's another little lesson. Okay. This is the way this works. So let's say you're out here and you hit the trend line. Okay. And you get below the trend line. The next place is you go to the opening range low, or the low from today. It's almost close by the same number, almost the same number. All right. So then you go here. That's the next area that they would have a bull bear battle under normal conditions. And you get below that low, 439.40, give or take, whatever that is, that opens the door for the next number down here. We don't know if that's going to happen, when that would happen, just utilizing the information on the chart. That's the way I utilize the information on the chart. See? From this chart's perspective, and this takes a long time to develop these candles because it's a 4-hour chart, but they're climbing the breakdown candle. Now, we don't know, you're looking at this, where that's going to stop, how high it'll go. We have no idea yet, but this was the bigger picture from earlier, and they haven't done anything different. They just haven't done it. All depends on what they do with 440.30. As long as we're in an uptrend, Trevor, the answer is yes. And the question is simple. Can they still push higher? Can they still get above the recent highs? Can they still go to a number that I had in mind where I said probably a few weeks ago, I think it was on a Fed day, if they got there by some miracle or whatever, if they got there on one of those squeezes or something like that, up 100 handles on the day in the ES or the S&P, can they get to a number that I said would be a stone cold short? Yeah, that's still available. As long as they're in an uptrend, there's no reason they can't push higher. And let's use this as evidence, right? Well, I'll do it on this chart. We'll just use the Qs. Doesn't matter what we use, okay? As long as they're in an uptrend, they can always push higher until it's over. As long as they're in an uptrend, they can always push higher until it's over. See what I'm saying? Nobody knew where this was going to end. Nobody. Nobody I knew. I'm sure they went a whole lot higher than most people ever anticipated they would. But as long as they're in an uptrend, they can always move higher. Just keep that in mind. And now we look at the spiders. Are they in an uptrend? Yeah, they can always push higher. And a weekly chart, it's nothing to have another push higher. It's nothing. Nothing at all. Intraday, day to day, you don't get the same visual. You don't get the same concept, meaning it's the bigger picture, and you can't trade the bigger picture from an intraday perspective all the time. Sometimes you know where they're going because of the bigger picture. You have a good idea. But intraday, it's different. Like it's easy for me to say, yeah, of course they could push higher. But that doesn't mean it's going to happen today. And Trevor, that's the reason why the answer is yes. Doesn't really have timing on it. I said that was a place, and it's still a good place. And I'll give it to you. It's up at 453, 452, up in that neighborhood. If they're up there, I'll have a refined number. I don't need it right now. Well, that's the only way we're going to learn, Trevor, is to ask questions and get a detailed answer that makes sense. It has to make sense. Not everything I say is going to make sense to everybody all the time. I'm completely aware of that. But over time, the information compounds on itself and you'll understand more and more. In fact, you don't know what you don't know, right? And that goes to everything in life, right? We don't know what we don't know. But the more you learn, the more your mind begins to realize there's a lot more to learn, and you're open to saying, hey, look, I don't know nearly as much as I'm going to know a month from now or 2 months from now or 3 months from now. But as long as I keep learning, you look back and you say, oh my God, I can't believe that I even thought that 3 months ago. That's not the case. And all those things will happen. But you have to stay with it. Twofer? I'm not sure I understand, Armand. Give me some more color on that one. The twofer? Yesterday? I'm not sure. I'm sorry, Armand. I'm not sure exactly what I said before to recall. You're not talking about the trade from yesterday. You're talking about something from today. Twofer, maybe if they, I don't know. I don't know what I was saying. Sorry. If I can't remember, it probably wasn't that important. Um, hmm, where they break the low. Oh, yeah. Okay, sure. Absolutely. Let me go back to what were we looking at when that was AMD, right? Okay. So here's what I was saying. So here I had a number in AMD and it was below the recent low, this recent low over here. So when I saw the number, okay, and I saw that it was below this recent low, I said, well, now we have two things going on. This number has nothing to do with that low. They didn't get there before, but it's still unfinished business in the way I'm look at things. And so therefore we have one thing, which is what they do a lot of times is they spike the low and they rip it back up in the other direction. That was item number one. So we talk about that in the spiders and it applies to everything. So that's something. And then the fact that my number was slightly below that low, that if they spike the low and get to my number, that's what I'm calling a twofer. Twofer meaning two reasons rather than just the number have the added spike the low because of that former low. And whenever I can find one of my numbers below a former low, I start to lick my chops. And that's what I've been saying. That's what I was saying. I've done that for years and years and years and years and years. That's what I was saying before, Armand. And yes, it was important. Is that, yeah, okay, there you go. You know, one of my secrets, when my number is below a low, a recent low, or any low, not 5 minutes ago low, but, you know, a former low. When it's not that close, like if the number was down here at 360 or whatever, okay, in the Qs, just saying, if it was, and I'm looking at this low, well, that's not close by. That doesn't count. If the number was down here at 382.85 and this low is looming here and that low is from yesterday, then I'm interested. 440.30, so they're trying it again, right? 441.05, and this is not a trader's tape. Let's both or all of us understand that. All they've done is filled the gap and creeped back up. Some traders took a long there, that's fine. If they stay above 440.30, the door does open for 441.80, but I can't say with any kind of certainty that they'll get there, but the door would be open to get there as long as they're above. They got to stay above. Okay, that's good, Brent. So we cleared it up. Don't be afraid to ask if something confuses you. I'll re-explain it. Don't have to wait. Hopefully somebody will ask the question. Just ask it. Hey, I didn't quite get that. Can you do that again? And I might do it a different way so that maybe some people didn't understand it the way I explained. I'll try a different way if it's available. So don't be afraid to ask. Not that you're afraid, but just ask. Now I like a little mystery, Joel. Because if I say that this is a specific setup and we start looking for it, traders look at it differently. And they end up taking more risk by human nature because they think it's special. It's not special. It's just the way I look at it. And the number's the number. And it is special to me, but I like to just do it the way I do it. I get what you're saying. It'll be fun that way, but I'll probably keep it the way it is. Because then you know what I get? I get the questions. Hey, it didn't work. Why didn't it work? It didn't work. They're not all going to work. Stay above 440.30 and they creep. Above 441.05 opens the door for 441.80. No change. These slow tapes, they'll speed up at some point. You got some data coming out later this week or whatever it is, CPI, PPI, all that nonsense. They'll, what follows a slow tape is a faster tape. Plus you have earnings coming out, so it'll change. But right now we got what we got. So Alos saying it took the breakout below the pivot, breakout below the pivot, breakout below the pivot. I don't think there's a such thing, but all I'm seeing is you bought it below the pivot and you took what I said and you said, well, maybe he's right. Maybe why are they up here again? Not to fail again. They already tried to fail. They couldn't fail. The failure failed. And back up at the pivot, maybe they are going to go higher. And that's what you did. And that's fine. You took what I said. You did what you were comfortable doing. And there's nothing wrong with that. It was a small position. That's fine. You knew where it was wrong. If they couldn't get above the pivot, they were going to fall again, but you knew that. So that's fine. That anytime we know the information and we make a decision based on the information, it's what is making us comfortable at the time. Now, if we're taking on too much risk, you'll eventually get that. You'll eventually understand that if it's going to be wrong and wrong and wrong time and time again. But if you're taking the information I'm saying, you know where you're wrong, it's a slow tape, it's a reasonable thing. Nothing wrong with that, Alice. I tell you everything I think about it, and we all will do or not do based on what we feel like, what we're comfortable with for all our own reasons. That's not going to change. Okay, Jorge. See you tomorrow. Be important if they come back down and test it. If they can't sustain price above and they start dripping below and closing candles below, it starts to look like a failure in the making. Again, we don't know until we know, but I'm just giving you my thought process. But if they run a test and they bounce off the test of 440.30, that's the other side. Meanwhile, I'm going to take a walk, stretch them out. So I'll be back in a few minutes. Slow creeping market. That's it. That's all we got. I'm here just watching. Got some questions, comments, complaints, put them in the box. 105, the former high over here. Normally that'll be some overhead resistance just in front of it, just over it, just for a while. Normal bull bear battle type stuff. It's the opening range high. That's just normal garden variety, the way the market works normally, the majority of the time. Nothing to do with that information. They're creeping higher. That's it. Yeah, we had a beat on AMD before, Armand. They missed it. Clack, nothing. See this? This is the bearish pattern. Doesn't matter what chart you look at. So no wonder they're getting hit, right? They're making a bullish wedge, bearish wedge, bearish wedgish type of deal. Let's look at the Lamb. Same pattern, right? They got an open gap down here, 608, 609, but that's no big deal. Qs. Well, I'll ask you, and you don't have to answer it, Will, but I'll just ask you to see if think about it. The later in the morning we get, the more likely am I to short or not short a particular area. And the answer is less likely. The low participation, torture time of day, torture trade would shy me away from a short. 367.90 is. Now let's look at the other side. It's an important number. They missed it before. So is there an opportunity to spike the high and pull it back down in the other direction? And the answer is yeah. But if they start closing candles above 367.90 in the Qs, then they're going to try and push higher. But yeah, it's a place. I just don't love the trade, but that doesn't mean it won't work. So I give you everything. I just don't like it because of the variable risk of the slow tape, low participation torture trade. So I try and eliminate that variable risk, but that doesn't mean the trade won't work. It just means I don't want it because I don't want to be tortured. There you go, Mark. How about that? I didn't even notice that. Mark's saying that midpoint, today's high is the midpoint of the two numbers, the pivot and the 441.80. It's funny how that works. I didn't even realize that. Good pickup, Mark. You want to look at advanced auto? Trevor? I think I looked at that yesterday. They're just trying to fill the gap at 71. That's it. Well, that's more interesting. You're right. So so check this out. Forget this stuff. So what's the first thing that jumped off the page at me? Well, it got crushed, but this is really the first thing that jumps off the page at me is a series of higher lows. Right? So that's a bottoming signal / bottoming process, higher lows. And it's working. So if they get above the high, they're going to start to try and work their way higher up this big breakdown candle, right? So if they can get above 73, give or take, that's what'll start to happen. So is the next target these highs, or is the next target 73 to see if they can start their journey? Hold on. Now we're going to look at another chart, see if we got a confirmation. Bottoming process or bearish flag? It's still a bearish flag, no matter what you say. But is that a bottom? And we don't know yet. It's too early to tell. That's why you have to go to all the charts and you take a look. So here, you say, hey, if they get above this high, the target is 73, and if they could start getting above 73, which is not that far away from current price, there's a whole nother leg higher possible, up another $5, $6, $7. But you have to keep in mind what they're doing on the longer picture. Longer charts take more time to develop. They could do both. They could do both. That's the thing. It's an interesting chart. You're right, Trevor. Was that you? Yes. Was that 29 area? Was that? Yeah, look at that. Yeah, and that's the other reason, Will, I don't like to go against I don't like to swim against the current. You got a slow tape in a short-term uptrend. I don't want to fight it. I really don't. Go back to the cues. Again, the whole concept is spike the high, get to a number, just like we talked about before in AMD. Spike the high, get to a number, and at least have a reaction back down in the other direction. That's a trade, notwithstanding the variable risk of fighting the tape and do I want it, time of day, do I want it over lunchtime, slow tape, low participation, all that stuff, torture trade. So you have to weigh those two things. Speculation by who, Will? That happens every single week with every piece of data. Analysts. Yeah, come on. You know me better than that by now. You're opening that conversation for me to just blast it. The analysts. What the fuck do they know? Excuse my French. Nothing, exactly. They're, by the way, I think those would fall into the category of economists that are looking at the CPI data, and right, it's a guess week to week. And so the economists are really, they are the epitome of the herd mentality. So they don't really, very few of them want to be on the other side of the majority. Some are willing, but most are not. And so they take other people's analysis and they word salad it, run it through ChatGPT, mix it up a little bit, and come out with something similar that sounds different. And it's all BS. It's all about how the market reacts to the number and whether they beat, miss, exceed, meet, whatever those expectations are going to be, you still don't know how the market's going to react to whatever the number is. And that's the phenomenon. No, you can't get your numbers from that. You can try, Mike, and I guarantee you can't. Absolutely not. Can you get the numbers from ChatGPT? Absolutely not. Try it. I tried it. I wanted to see what it, I worked on it for, I don't know, a couple of hours, see what it came up with. Came up with a bunch of crap. Okay. I took you seriously there for a moment. I mean, this was the bull case, right? Anybody riding it? Well, we talked about it before. That was a trader's choice. They stay above 440.30 and they're going to move higher. Okay. Plenty of traders. There's not always a fast trade at a number in your face. Sometimes it's, are they going to continue to stay above and creep above and get to the next place? And I'm willing to take on that risk. In a slow tape, unless it just speeds up on you and it drops through the floor, which can happen, but it doesn't happen that often, then it's a reasonable risk reward for those that are comfortable doing it. Nice job, Grant. Yeah, we got a lot of you riding it. Just anticipate what I'm going to say next, which is if they come back down to test 440.30 and bounce off of it, that's bullish. If they start closing candles below, they're going to fall. You knew I was going to say that. Ambarella? No. No, they didn't. Almost did. No, Brent, because a lot of traders took a profit already. And why did they do that? Because we talked about 441.05, give or take, being the next area of overhead resistance that will produce a bull bear battle at least for a while. So when if a trader was over here, and I know this because they said it in the box, already took profit, blah, 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 and because from here to here, you have an obligation at the next area of overhead resistance to at least take some profit in front of it if we're treating it as a business. And that's my answer, Brent. That comes from being here for a while and understanding what I'm saying is for a reason. And that's why I said before, you're going to expect a bull bear battle up at 441.05, give or take. So when traders that are long hear that, they say, all right, well, then I have to exit something up there. That's just a natural progression of thinking. And the longer you're here, the more it becomes second nature. Umbrella's still good, but maybe you just make them spike it a little bit. They didn't really bounce away too much. I appreciate that, Will. I know there are. That's fine. I appreciate it. Sometimes I want to keep it just between you and me. Sometimes I'll tell them. I'll be back in 30 seconds. Seconds are up. I'm back. Yeah, Umbrella's still on the table. They can get into the zone. They could bounce it at the first number. They could spike it. All that stuff is possible. We don't know which one is going to happen, but the zone is still good. And Ambarella. So you need to recognize that the spread is 79.59 to 79.73. So 59 to 73, 14 cent spread is it makes it a little more difficult. You can't put a market order in with stuff like that just for knowledge purposes because they'll fill you at the ask and you're leaving. You just can't do it. Put a number in, they fill you, fine. They don't fill you, fine. But you can't put a market order in with a spread like that. Anytime, not just this one, anytime. And this goes to what I say when some traders ask, can we use options? Not if the spread is wide, because it's very difficult. You can get in sometimes, but it's like a roach motel. You can't get out. You chase it around with the big spread. You put an order in, they drop the ask, they drop the bid. It's a game. Okay, so Ambarella came into the numbers, so we'll see what happens. It's very slow, obviously. Not to be Captain Obvious, but slow. If I was going to be in a position in a slow market, I would rather be in a long position than a short position in a slow tape, low participation. Not that you should be in one or the other. I'm just saying if I was going to be in one in a slow tape, I'd rather be in a long. It's not moving. The bid and the ask are moving, but I don't see the chart moving. Let's change it up. Look at that. It's not really moving. It is, but it's not. The volume is really light, Ambarella. That's why the spread is so narrow, so wide. No change to the spiders, 440.30. That's the spot. Above or below? Bullish or turn bearish? Short term. Bigger picture for now. Whoops. Leave that there. Ballpark, right? Ballpark. 50% retracement of that move. There's a 618. Just get another perspective. What's actually happening? Hourly chart, what are they doing? Nothing. They're just going sideways above the pivot. That's bullish for now. Move up, sideways in a bullish, flaggish kind of formation. Higher low, below the pivot. That begins to change. For now, higher low, and they're going sideways. It's just the way I'm looking at it. It changes right below here. Then I say, well, then the upside is suspect as long as they're below the pivot. Yeah, we're going to leave that stuff trader's choice, Will. I'm just going to keep doing it the way I'm doing it. Let's see what they do with this test coming up at a pivot. We're going to take a break. I'll keep it open until 12:15 again today, but we'll take a break in a few minutes here. Exactly. That's the whole point. Will, you got it. I got to balance all that stuff. Last questions, comments, complaints, not necessarily in that order. I was just thinking about that. I was looking at it. I mean, a target on Ambarilla. The target on Ambarilla is over 80. Now, if they get back over 80, they can still go higher. The target is a spike over 80. You see this low here? That jumps out at me on the way back up. Market thought that was important. It bounced there, then it gave it up. That's a breakdown area. Come back to test it as a spike over 80. And it may not give you a full 75, 80 cents on the trade, but if you can get, at this time of day, if you can get 50 cents, 45, 50 cents on a trade around lunchtime, that's okay. That's okay. Meta, let's see. Yeah, it's just in an uptrend. That's it. Remember this? We don't know how high as it relates to the weekly chart. There's certainly daily and intraday resistance areas up there, but this is the big picture. It's in an uptrend, so until that changes, sign or signal of a trend change or something else to warrant a trend change, that's it. Whoops, wrong tool. Nah, that's no good. That's it. It's just an uptrend. There's nothing really to do with it unless you're long. If you're long, you ride it. You can't buy it up here. It's not the prudent thing to do. Apple, hold on a second. That was yesterday. It's very hard to say where the top is or was when you're at new highs. So the question is, are they putting in a top? See this here? 183. For me, if they start getting below there, that begins to confirm a top. If they stay above 185 and a quarter on weekly closes, then I think the uptrend is still intact. That's my take on Apple. Yeah. Well, this stuff's going to move with earnings. That happens. Up or down, that's what's coming. Yeah, and sometimes they run them up into earnings. Sometimes they run them down, go the other way. It's all of the above. Sometimes they run them up into earnings and then they run them up after earnings. And these, not necessarily so much on Apple, but some of the other wild stuff, you just never know. How many times have we seen the Netflixes of the world run up into earnings and then they gap them up anyway? They're $30 or $50. Happens all the time. We just don't know. Earnings a crapshoot. If they're at an important place and it took all that time or a lot of time to get there right up into earnings, is it less of a crapshoot? Potentially. Yeah, sometimes. But still in the crapshoot camp. Last call for alcohol. Be back at 12:15. But to sign up, yeah, it's a slow tape today. There's nothing you can do about that. I think we got a lot of learning in. And let's see what Ambarilla's doing. Start to bounce yet? Not yet. All right, I'll leave it up there anyway. 12:15. All right, we'll see what's what. Andy wants AR resistance today. All right, let me do that. Okay. I got to look on this on my other screens here. I'll be right back with that. All right, Andy. After that, I don't really have anything until you get to these highs up here at 2460, whatever, 59. I think it's a target. In other words, you're not really far enough to buy it, but it's not that far away. But it's really, it should be a target. Not today per se. Gary, I don't know what that is. I'm sorry. I could just do what I do. I know what I know. I don't know what that is. 1 hour, 50-day called IHF. No idea. I'm sorry. Nothing I could do with that. Don't listen to your friends. They don't know anything. Never heard of that before. Sorry. There's all kinds of made up stuff. That definitely sounds made up. All right. 12:15, guys and gals. Appreciate everybody. I'll be back. All right. I'm back. So they almost got to the 441.80. They came up a dime short. I think the high here is 70. Yep. And that's normal garden variety stuff. Sometimes they come up short. Sometimes they spike them through. The number was 441.80. Traders that were riding it up long had a nice little ride if you did so. And Barillo's back to the entry. Will shorted the Qs up at 367.90. Almost on the button. Yep. Trader's choice. Right back. Have anything they want to discuss? Charts, whatever? Tell me. Redfin. Boy, I haven't looked at that in ages. 20 bucks. I mean, that's the natural thing they're trying to do. 20 bucks. 21. That's good low. So you look at it this way, right? Take a really long-term view and say, all right, where's the garden variety retracement take you to? 27 to 30 bucks is a garden variety retracement. And oh, by the way, check this out, right? Forget the retracement. Check this out. Look at this spot over here. Market ran up to that spot and was rejected. This is a long-term chart, so that's a lot of points. 32 down to 963. Okay. Then it busted above it, and that's a breakout area. It seems like they fought it for a little while. But wouldn't that be important on the way back up too? It's not a guarantee, but yeah. I don't know that they get there, but it seems to be in the same general area as I just discussed, a normal garden variety retracement. Now, this will take some time. You're at 15 bucks. It's a lot of percentage, but look what they've done recently. So it's probably going to take a pause here for a while. Use this number 14, whatever that high is, as the most recent breakout area. But that's Redfin. That's like my analysis on Redfin, just looking at it for the first time and who knows how long. All right, Jason? Chart's bullish. That's the bottom line. They'll run into resistance and pull back, but right now it's still bullish. Higher lows, see that? Uptrend. Yep, you're welcome. What else we got? You're right, Will. Manner in which I got that on the cues. I saw that. Nice job. Yes, Ron. First time, best time. If they go back up now, maybe they spike the high and pull it back at the number. It's still a resistance zone up here. Yeah, they're not blowing this up today. That's my take. Unlikely. Coin. I look at that from time to time. Let's see. I don't know. I got to look at some more charts. Give me a second. I'll be back with this one. So coin's at an interesting place right now. And if they can start to push above here and stay above, same routine, close candles above, daily chart, 97 and a quarter is the next target. Above 97 and a quarter, and they start to get to 100, and then they start working on these pivots here. But those are the two nearby numbers. They're at one right now. You're welcome. No, not me. They came up 10 cents short, and that's it. It's over. John, if you take profit down here at the pivot. Let's see. What else we got? Shop. I didn't see that one. I'm not sure when I did these numbers, but that one today was valid. And you look at the long term, and it's in an uptrend. Just going back and forth. Drill down, and you say, well, get below here, 60 and a quarter, $60, and it opens a door up for some of these lows down here. Stay above, and they're just trending upward. 62.95. Fill this gap up here. That's the next place. 65 bucks. There's nothing to do. There's no setup right now. We don't need this. Yeah, they got to get back above 79.56. They're still in the range. They tried to bounce and they failed. So that's your short-term answer. They got to get back above. It's not whether I think they'll get to 80. The only way they get to 80 is they got to back above that number. And the longer they stay below this number, the more the more likelihood they get to the next number. Spike the low, next number. Okay. Yep, you were right, Thomas. Gold. Yeah, my take on gold really never changes. It's in a long-term uptrend, but remember this? I don't know if you were here. That was a stone cold short and they never got there. But so they're in a downtrend short term, uptrend long term. I'm certainly not a shorter of gold, but I'm a buyer. If they break the chain of these higher lows, then they'll come down and it'll be a potential buying opportunity. Not a potential, it will be a buying opportunity. What does this trend line look like? I haven't looked at this. Nah, that's nothing. So they're already below that, which really opens the door for what? So watch this. So this breakup candle low is tested. They're bouncing off of it. But if they can't sustain the bounce and they get into no man's land, they fill the gap and all that stuff. But I'm a buyer lower if they go lower. Otherwise, I'm a long-term uptrend holder of gold. That's me. What's a symbol for platinum, Stephen? Well, maybe I have it in here. I don't think platinum's in here now. Let's look it up. You're holding this breakup candle low on the weekly chart. That's your last line of defense on weekly closes before you come all the way down to 850. 850 would be a buy in my opinion, unless they're going to climb this breakdown candle, which could happen now if this holds. We don't know. But trying to put in a bottom with some higher lows so they can get back up to 1,000, maybe 985 on this bounce. They could. I'm not saying they will, but they could. All right. Hold on a second. All right. Let me take a look at this. Question is, did they put in a top at 150 or change? Just give me a second. Let me get a better perspective on some bigger charts. Hold on. All right, here's the story in Celsius. If they start getting below 138.15 on daily closes and then weekly close, I think the uptrend is over for now. And then this is like confirmation below 132 and change. And then if they break that, they're going to start testing these lows down here. First one and a quarter, and then down here. If they stay above here, the uptrend's intact. That's the way I see Celsius. All right, let's see what else we got. Yeah, maybe so, Will and Chop. I don't know about that stuff. I don't know how much of a percentage of that stuff actually works out versus doesn't work out. Is it 50-50, 60-40? Who knows? I've seen that stuff before and I've never had much luck with it. GME, 2485 to 25. And I say 2485 because it's in front of 25, which is an attractive number. That's an upside target. Don't know if they get there today, but that's an upside target. Today, they could get there today. If you bought it down there at the lows, there's no reason not to hold it. At least some of it. Should have taken profit already anyway, so you hold some of it. See if they can ramp them up into the close or higher. Yeah, I think we talked about the triangle a day or so ago. I'm not sure when. Look at that. We definitely looked at that the other day. Was it down here? No. Yeah, maybe. But that's got more time. That's got more time. Is there another one? I mean, could we do this? Could do anything you want. I'm saying, does this make sense? Well, not really. It doesn't, it doesn't. Yeah, I can make a case, but I think it's manipulative. But who's to say it's not valid, right? We don't know. Who's to say that's what it would be? That's essentially the triangle, I think. That's the best we could do with the nearest term stuff. And it's not perfect, but it's not bad. Who brought that up? Matt. Yeah, maybe. Is that the one you were looking at? That was Monday. Last Wednesday? That was the first one, right? No? You're saying Wednesday here? No, that doesn't work. All right, those are the two we've got possible, but needs a whole lot more time. Not a whole lot, but more. Boy, I'll be right back in a minute. Things, Brent, you said to ask my friend. I didn't tell you to ask anybody. I'm not sure what that means. Question is from John, is 440.30 still support and a long trade? Well, if they got there like sooner than later, you're likely to get a bounce off that area. I think the last thing I wrote on the board was 440.50 to 440.30, and they already did that. So the low here was 440.45. Funny how that works. So if you have the notes, I wrote that before. So they already did it. So it's not the same. I'll be right back again, one more time. Again. Anything else? We'll begin to wrap it up for the day here between now and 1 o'clock, somewhere in there. They're going to climb this candle. They're going to put in a bearish wedge and have another move down, test the pivot again, or get below the pivot, or are they going to try for the highs again in the afternoon in this low participation, light volume scenario? Was just a shakeout operation? And those are the questions right now that we don't know the answer to. But when you look at this, you say, well, are they retracing this tail over here, or are they just continuing to grind up, having some unfinished business up there? Those are the questions I'm asking when I look at the tape. That's all. Yeah, I did, Shannon, and this is a good question, so I'll speak to it here. The question is, did you turn commercials on for the nightly videos? And the answer is I did, not because I want to, not because I'm trying to make money off it. I don't. It's for the amount of viewers I get, it doesn't make any money, but that's not the point. This is the point. YouTube, I'm testing it. I think YouTube shows videos less that have ads turned on than videos with ads turned off, or pardon me, less with videos ads turned off than ads turned on. And so if I want YouTube to display my video to more viewers, more potential viewers out there, I think I have to have the ads turned on, even though they're a pain in the ass. I'm testing it. I'm going to test it for a few weeks, see what happens. Yeah, I have no choice. I mean, it's actually, they're getting less views than they used to by a little bit. And it's not that big of a deal. But when I see that, I say, well, what's the reason? My videos stink, but I should still be attracting the same type of people that I attract before, right? Because my content, my style will attract a certain type of person, and it should be constant. But the fact that they're showing the videos less, I think, is because there's more and more videos with ads turned on, so they have an opportunity to make money, meaning YouTube, not the other people. YouTube cares about YouTube. Google cares about Google. They don't care about you. They want the viewers. They want the content, but they want to make money from it. If they can't make money from it, they don't care. And that's the position that I'm in. We'll see. So what? It's an ad, right, Grant? Grace, thank you. It's an ad. And so almost every video we click on now has an ad, so you skip it. That's fine. Now, I think the comments help. Maybe the likes help too, Brent, but I think the comments help a lot. I think you're right about that. Probably both. I'm not a YouTube expert. I don't speed them up now. Some people listen to them at a higher speed. I know Jordan does, or used to. No, I don't speed them up. That was a bad chart before. This is just the middle of the day torture back and forth. They had a shakeout. Anybody that was willing to be short up there in front of the number, and I know there were some, you got paid. But essentially, there's nothing going on except the grinding situation, higher lows. That's bullish short term. And it's bullish long term because it's in a bullish uptrend to begin with. So look at the hourly chart. You're above all the moving averages. 2-hour chart, you're above all the moving averages right now. This current candle's not closed yet, and it won't close until 1:30. 3-hour chart, you're working on it. 4-hour chart, you're above all the moving averages. See, this is that spot, this big breakdown candle. This is what they're doing. Big picture, half-day chart, 4-hour chart. Daily chart, it's an uptrend. See how this works? Yeah, well, I'm focused on the information, and I'm more concerned in here with giving quality information, and I have to be careful not to get too excited in here because it give the wrong impression. I don't get excited. I do it on purpose. I don't get excited in a trade, waiting for a trade, whatever, because you have to keep it programmatic. You got to keep it process driven and kind of paint by the numbers. It's mechanical. That's the word I was looking for. I always use mechanical. Just either is or it isn't. The numbers are either going to work or they're not. Most of them work, some don't. And that we'll just leave it at that. Plus, at the end of the day, like in the afternoon, I start to formulate what I want to say in the video based on what's going on. And sometimes, like last night, I saw some things that I thought were interesting. And so I'm laughing because it's funny to me. Like I get excited when I find stuff on the chart that is interesting to me. I get excited to convey the information. In here, I just keep it process driven, mechanical. But yeah, you notice that's definitely a distinct difference, my tone in the videos versus in here. You're right about that. I'm so focused when I get up in the morning in what's going on here, that it's just, I'm like a robot. I've been doing it for so long. The first thing I do when I wake up is I get the lay of the land with the market. What's going on? What do we got? Where's the trade? That's the first thing I'm looking for, and I keep looking until I find it. And I find the pivot, and I find the setup, and I find what's likely to happen, what I can put on the board, all that kind of stuff, whether it be just for myself in the past or for you guys. So I'm very focused from the time my feet hit the ground in the morning, obviously. I mean, you guys know that. You could sense that. Now, Brent, they already gave you that trade. They just came up 10 cents short. Spike the high and pull it back, it's possible, but that's not the same trade. That's not the same trade, not even close. And I don't, let's put it this way. The morning is different than the afternoon. The spike the low and rip it back up, or spike the high and pull it back down, is more prevalent in the morning than the afternoon, because the afternoon you're already established a thing for the day most of the days. Yeah, the market could fall apart in the last 2 hours, or it could rally in the last 2 hours, be down most of the day. That happens, sure. But we've established today that the S&P is up 15 points. We've established that's the type of day it is. Could it be up 20 or 22 or 24? Yeah. Could it be up 5 at the end of the day? Yeah. But if it's going to be down at the end of the day, it's likely going to be below the pivot, which is 10 points lower than we are. And then who knows what happens. So there's your 5. And then if they get below the pivot, it's anything goes. And then you establish into the end of the day, you're not going to try and pick off a low with an hour left on the clock, because what happens if you're wrong? So it's not the same as the morning. And that's why in the morning at 10:30 in the morning, if you ask me that same question, Brent, about 441.80, I would say, yeah, I say it's still an opportunity because they can spike the high and pull it back down. But in the afternoon, I'm less likely to like that because of the time left, the type of day. It's a grinding market. They've already established the thing. They can continue to grind higher. That's the reason. So it's kind of, that's the art form and the way I look at things versus the science of it. Variable risk is less in the morning with that kind of trade than it is in the afternoon. Let's put it that way, I think. No, I'm not, Brent. I'm just here because I'm going to wrap it up soon, but I'm not looking for anything. In the afternoon, they have to do something. I'll give you the example. If over the next half an hour, for example, I'm just making it up, could be 45 minutes, whatever. If they ran up to 442.40, I might be willing to short that if they did it quickly, sooner than later. Anything below that, I'm less likely to take a short. I'm probably not going to ever take a short today on anything below that. So that would be an extreme from where the market currently is, all things considered, an extreme from a near-term intraday perspective, not an extreme from a weekly chart or anything like that. So just from what's going on now, relatively speaking, it would be an extreme. On the low side, they would have to get, for me to take a trade on the long side this afternoon, they would likely have to get down to 438.70. And I don't know whether that will or won't happen, but anything before that, I'm less likely to be interested. Extremes in the afternoon are really the only way that I would do it. So there's an answer. Yeah, I think Will brings up markets like waiting on CPI. Yeah, like we're waiting on the Fed. Now all of a sudden, since it's slow, it has to be waiting on something to move to get like another injection of volatility in the market. So what's the next thing on the board is CPI. And so we can look to CPI and say, well, at 8:30 tomorrow morning, whenever we come out with CPI, the market is likely to move something. And we'll see what happens after that. So I agree. What follows a slow market is a faster market. You just don't know exactly when, but CPI would be a good logical answer as to when the next time the market may move more than the current type of volatility, and tomorrow's that day. We'll see. Yep, see you tomorrow, Phil. Does that make sense, Brent? What I described before? And let me qualify that further, because I'm not looking for 2 points. Now, don't take this like, don't do this. I'm just giving you an example. If I was looking for 2 points, I could consider shorting 441.50 to 441.60 and likely going to get some kind of couple of point reaction, meaning ES points, 20 cents, maybe 30 cents in the spider. But I'm not looking for that kind of stuff. So when I give you that answer, it's because I'm only willing to get into a trade that can give me a starting profit of 5 to 7 S&P points, 50 to 70 cents in the SPY. Okay, that's the only way that I'm willing to get into a trade, is by giving me a minimum of that much, at least to get started. Otherwise, I'm not interested. So further qualification of that. From a short-term, little tiny perspective, are they going to react at 441.50, give or take? Probably, but I'm not interested in that stuff. Well, Ron, remember what I put on the board before? I said support was 440.50 to 440.30. It changes during the day. Good, and you're supposed to change your thinking. I'm trying to rewire everybody's brain little by little, Brent. All for the good, all for the better. I'm not trying to shock you, just trying to help you rewire it in the positive direction for how this stuff works, at least from where I sit, right? I'm gonna start to wrap it up here. Good conversation today, slow tape, but there was stuff to do. We had traders that made money today, no doubt about it. As long as you know the numbers, you can make something happen. Not every time, not 100% of the time, but most of the time. There you go, Jeff. 10 points is a good day. Yeah, you look at it this way, no matter what you traded, right? Because everybody does their own thing and increase it whenever you feel comfortable type of thing. But if you look at 10 points and you say, hey, I'm willing to trade 2 contracts at 10 points is $1,000. Now, if I can get an average of 10 points on 2 contracts or 3 contracts, would be $1,500. If I could do that on a somewhat regular basis, which you can, okay, we have certainly it's going on in here and a lot more. That's, I don't have to tell you what that is. That turns into real business, because that's a starting point, or it's a starting point. It may take you a year to get there, may take you 6 months to get there, 3 months, whatever. But once you're there, then there's a new starting point. Job, Will. Big profits. And just for those of you that hear this and know it, Will plays size. He has the account to do it. He has the experience to do it. He knows the risk. He does it in his own way, and he does it with some hedging strategies that I don't do, but that's trader's choice. And so he knows what he's doing, and he's using the numbers to his advantage fully. We can all trade with size over time. Everybody's size is different. This is the reason why the afternoon is not the morning. And even though this morning was just as slow, you see what goes on here. They move up 15, 20 cents. They move down 15, 20 cents. They drive you crazy. They're not crisp. They're not doing anything in a hurry. So it's not a trader's tape. And it's like this in the afternoon, at least up until the end of the day, more often than it's not. That's why I say it's a morning business. Don't do stupid stuff in the afternoon. I mean it. Dima, let me take a look what we're talking about there, just so I know we're on the same page. So you're talking about Friday. Yeah, you could say that. It wasn't the reason, but it works out that way. Works out that way. It was a reason, kind of. But yeah, in part, when I see, and this goes back to how I figure out the pivot each and every day, and Dima's asking, what what else was there? Well, in the pre-market today, let's look at it. So there's your pivot. Okay, what time is this? 5 a.m. You see this? Now you don't know what the pivot is when you see this, but what happens is this is up till 8 o'clock. This is up till 9 o'clock. So you don't know because of the movement above and below, but I'm already looking at this area for a reason. And then when I see the market, we'll call it oscillating around this number for hour after hour after hour in the pre-market, that gives me further, call it insight, further confirmation for me that I'm onto something with the pivot. So this was an area above or below, and you can see it now. I mean, you can still see it. They ran up here, they couldn't get through, they got through, they came back down, they got through, they came back down, they got through, they came back down, and now they're above. That was my pivot. It's a combination, and a lot of times it's not only the pre-market, because it may be a place from yesterday that they still haven't visited in the pre-market, but they're above something else, and that really just opened the door. So sometimes I'll call it a bull pivot, or sometimes I'll just call it a pivot. It changes every day, and I don't want to confuse the issue, but I'm just trying to answer the questions, and it's not easy sometimes, because sometimes I tell you stuff and it confuses you further. Stephen, yeah. Have a good day, Brent. You too. Thank you. All right. I think we're going to call it a wrap here. Don't do stupid stuff. Market's grinding up. They're not telling you anything other than, in my opinion, they're working on this. And exactly where they find overhead resistance, whether they did already or whether they push higher into the end of the day, the likelihood of getting above here on the first run is in the 20% or less camp of the 80-20 rule. And I'll leave you with that. And that was kind of part of the thing this morning. And then when I see that and I say, all right, let me run some numbers to refine the information to say, all right, in that area up near the top, where are the real numbers up there that I can identify as being important? And that's not always at the top. And that's how I do it. See how it all works together. Apple's probably headed lower. Let's see what we got in Apple. Well, it certainly doesn't look bullish. Not on the chart. Yeah, you crack this low and it's 185. Not like the next hour, but you crack this low and it opens the door to 185. And this low is 187.04. 185. Spike of 185. And guess what? Okay. Then as the market came back to that area over here, it oscillated around it and then it broke above. And this is the first test since the rally above this area, 185. What's this exact number? 184.95. Now, if they creep into it, that's one thing. If they got there, let's just say next couple of days, it's likely daily support for a couple days. Likely bounce off there. Get below 185, they'll fight back to it. Okay? All right, folks. I'm wrapping it. Appreciate everybody. I do appreciate you being here. We'll be back tomorrow in uniform, ready to go. Enjoy the afternoon. Don't do stupid stuff. And I'm glad, I think several of you had a nice day, even on a slow day, and that's always nice to see, nice to hear. All right, so we'll see you. Enjoy the afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow. Appreciate everybody.